Hello, welcome, Keith. Keith has been a patient of mine for how many years? A lot of years. He has a great story to tell, so I'm gonna turn it to you, Keith, and tell us everything about it.
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me. Quite a few years ago, I was getting addicted to the opiates, the Vicodin and Norco and Somas, and just couldn't get off of them.
When did that start?
I would say probably 15 years ago, about around there. So this went on for about 5 years that I was doing them and couldn't stop. And I had a doctor that was prescribing them for me. And then after that, the government cracked down on them. And so I was starting to get them off the street, which got to be really expensive. So this whole time, my wife was not liking any of this. Oh, I thought, well, I got to get off of these drugs. I need to save my life. I need to save my marriage. So I called a few doctors, and all I got was an answering machine. And then I called Dr. Corona, and he answered the phone. And I said, oh, thank you, God. This is a miracle for me. So I was able to get in and see him the next day. And he started me right away on the right prescriptions. And about 3 or 4 days later, I was feeling so much better. My addiction for the opiates was gone. I wasn't having the craving anymore. But this lasted about 3 or 4 years. Then I went in and had surgery and started back up on the drugs, the Vicodin and the Norco. And so I talked to Dr. Corona and decided to go see another doctor who started me on Suboxone. And then after Suboxone, after a few weeks, I started taking the monthly injections Vivitrol. And that knocked it out completely. And I haven't done any since then.
Have you continued on Suboxone?
Nope, the Suboxone lasted about 2 weeks. And the Vivitrol...
Oh, you were on it for 2 weeks and you were able to get off of it that quickly?
The Suboxone helped me come down from the opiates. But first you have to go 2 weeks straight, and they check your urine at the doctor's office, and then they start you on the Suboxone. Then about 2 or 3 weeks later, I started on the Vivitrol shots. The injections were every 4 weeks. And after the first injection, I could feel a big difference. So I went probably a year taking the injections, and then I thought, well, I think I'm pretty good. So I started going without the injections, and everything has been fine since then.
So now go back to when you first got on the so you were on benzos, which are the tranquilizers like Xanax and things like that.
Right, the synthetic
right.
drugs. Yeah.
And then I think were you on any kind of a stimulant?
No stimulants.
Opiates.
Opiates.
So when you started doing them, did you feel like you were self-medicating? Did you feel like that it was helping your mood, or what looking back before that even happened, tell me about like what was going on with your mood?
I just knew I had depression because I drank for a long time, and it's been 30 years now.
Okay.
So I decided I need to stop drinking because I must be depressed. So that's when all the new medications were coming out for depression. So I've taken every one that there is and finally decided on the Paxil. And that seems to be working just fine.
You're still taking that?
Still taking that.
Right.
Right. And it's taking gabapentin and then Seroquel at night for sleep.
So going back to before the alcohol started, so that's been a while ago. So that was before opiates, before.
Right.
How old were you when that started happening?
I have always felt depressed since I was a kid, since I was born, and it runs in the family.
Oh, really?
So I kind of knew something was going on, but they didn't have any good medications back then, or any.
Oh yeah, you're that old, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. You gave it away. So
I'm right there with you. Don't worry. I'm right there. You're right. There wasn't, really the modern antidepressants came out really in the late '80s into the '90s, really. But there was really nothing. Well, they had things before them, but they were really very poorly tolerated. We call it the tricyclic antidepressants, were very poorly tolerated when you had to get the dose up, and before that they really didn't have a lot.
Right.
Some of the antipsychotics that lithium has been around for a while, but it's not really until the modern medications came out that people really started having better options.
Right.
But what you said is key, because when I hear that it's since childhood, that's a very important thing to hear. What that means is that you have very strong genetics. Tell me about the genetic history in your family.
A lot of depression on my mom's side. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much all I know about that, except for now that I look back on my childhood, I can see where it was showing up with her a lot.
How about your dad?
Didn't really see him that much. He was a heart surgeon and was gone all the time at the hospital, but he was not home, so I couldn't really tell much. But he was the nicer one of the two in the family.
Mm-hmm. Who do you think you take more after?
My mom.
Yeah. And so this is another thing, when I take people's history, about their family history, I ask them, who do you resemble most, looks and personality? So people say, well, you get a mix of both parents, of course. But you draw more from the side that you resemble more. So you can have two siblings, and if there's a history on mom's side, and if one takes after mom and one takes more after dad, and there's no history on dad's side or as much history, then that person typically does better, because that person doesn't have I call the genetic load that the other person has. Most people, when I take a history, will say to me, when does depression and anxiety start, would be like middle school. And the reason for that is puberty. So, I've talked about this on the show before, the main reasons why these things happen: genetic predisposition. So genetics is number one. Number two is hormonal times of change, which means what? Puberty. So that's why, middle school gets kind of rough and into high school. Menopause for women, menopause I call for men. So menopause meaning, men in their 40s, 50s, go through some hormonal changes, different than women, but that's another time that it can happen. And then the third factor is situational stressors, trauma, PTSD. So really bad things happening to a person. So they can lead to depression and anxiety issues. So when I see her childhood, it just shows me again. And if you look at your mom, I'm not sure, but I'm guessing her mom or dad, and like if you probably look in her family tree, you're going to probably see a lot of history. And you're not going to always see there. You may not see they were depressed or that, but you're going to see alcoholism, because back then maybe they didn't have all the modern drugs we have around now to abuse. So they had alcohol, they had tobacco, but they didn't have a lot more, And so that's why taking a really good history is so important, to try to really get to the truth. I always really delve into the family history, because you can learn a lot there.
Right.
So walking through after childhood, go into like the elementary school, middle school, high school. How was your mood during those years?
Well, my parents are Baptist missionaries, so I was born in Korea, lived there for 9 years. And then every day we'd be driven over to the Army base for our school. Oh. So I just remember that my mom was very strict. I probably had PTSD from all the whippings I got from her. I never thought of that before till now. But she was so strict, I can't believe it. And there was no love in the family. None.
Yeah. So. Well, because of her mood disorder,
Yeah.
she was a very unhappy
Right.
woman, and so she took it out on you, and she
Took
took
it
it
out
out
on
on other
me.
people because that's what
Yeah.
she could do.
And
You were
my dad.
vulnerable. And
Took
your
it
dad
out of
too.
my dad too. I
Wow.
think that's why he was gone a lot of the time too.
Yeah. Keep away from her.
Yeah. So alcoholism does run in her family, but my parents never drank.
Okay. So how did you? So it was a kind of rough childhood, obviously. When did you break away from there? How old were you when you?
16 when I moved out of the house, as soon as
Okay.
I graduated from high school.
Were you still over? So you weren't in Korea yet? Still at that
No,
point.
I was there for 9 years.
Right.
Was born in 1956 and then flew back to Texas and lived there for 20 or so years. And then I moved out here.
Okay.
Probably been out here for probably 30 years or
So
so.
how old were you when you think the alcohol started really playing a factor?
Started with pot, smoking behind the Circle K when I was in high school.
Yep.
So it started there. And then still in high school, it was LSD. And we lived out in the sticks. So across the street was big cow pasture. So we're out there picking mushrooms. So that started. I didn't like that too much. But I could see that the LSD kind of helped in a little bit. But I just couldn't. And going through high school, I just didn't know how to study. I couldn't remember things. So I was cheating, getting caught sometimes, or I would just fail classes. Especially if I had to get up and speak in front of the class, I would just skip that whole class.
Yep.
And then after the pot, started drinking. But at the time, you don't know why you're doing it. Now I know why. It's to escape
Sure.
everything. So definitely self-medicating.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what people. I mean, again, it's the difference. I mean, people can social drink. If they keep it under control, but if
Right.
it gets, it's a daily drinking every evening. If it gets heavier, then it could be a definite problem.
Right.
Yeah, anything, like I said, anything to the extreme, of course. So how old were you then when the alcoholism got better?
Oh, let's see. I think I was. It's been 30 years since I quit drinking.
Wow.
But
That's
I
great.
had tried to get some life insurance, and they did a blood test and found out my liver enzymes are so high that they weren't going to cover me.
Wow.
So I went and had a biopsy done, and that's when the doctor said you should stop drinking. So
How old were you? How old you were about then?
it's probably in my 30s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then that's when I had met my wife, and things weren't going too good. It was a lot of arguing and stuff on my part. So I decided, this is easy. I just quit. I'll just quit. And then that's when I started Zoloft.
Yeah, but that's not
And-
easy. Yeah, but when you said that's not easy, just quitting is not easy at all for
Yeah.
people. Especially when you know it's a problem.
Right.
Alcoholics bargain a lot. Like, well, come on, I can just on the weekend, or I can just, hey, I'm at a wedding, it's an open bar. I mean, come on, you can't give that. You got to take advantage of that, or, it's the bargaining of alcoholism to think, well, come on. I mean, I can never drink again. I mean, everyone drinks. So I hear it a lot.
Yeah.
People try to justify it. I mean, some people can do it. Some people can bring it down to social drinking and keep it under control. But that's the exception. That's not the
Right.
rule. So it's not easy to do that. So the fact that you were able to do that shows a strong will. So the first thing you were exposed to was Zoloft?
Right.
And how was that? How did that work for you?
That was fine, but the sexual dysfunctions were terrible.
Right.
Awful. So that's when I went through every other pill, and it wasn't the same.
Right.
And I believe that's an SSRI, not an SNRI,
SSRI.
which is making the difference. And that's what you introduced me to. And, you came up with a perfect cocktail for me, which I never ever thought of, about hitting different parts of the brain. And that seems to be working just fine.
And I'll explain later when I'm at my whiteboard about about the chemicals. But so in you, basically, what I identified treating you is you had three chemicals out of balance: serotonin, dopamine, and GABA.
Right.
So the SSRI takes care of serotonin, the dopamine, that's Seroquel, and then the gabapentin takes care of GABA. Yeah. So that's why, if you want to treat these things completely, you have to treat each. You got to treat completely, and that's a lot of people struggle with that because people say, I don't want to be on so many things. It's like, well, come on. I mean, three things is not that many things.
That's what I thought.
But that's the other bargaining with patients is like, oh, can I take something away? I go, you can, but you won't feel good. You can try it, and so some people just have to do it and to test it out, and then if they have to do it, they got to do it. If that's what it takes to prove it to them,
That's what happened to me, and it's refreshing to know that you let me do that and find out on my own, because I definitely did that.
Yeah. So so good, and so after that, after you beat the alcohol, then tell me when the opiates. How long after that did we struggle with the benzos and the opiates?
Okay, so I'll go back to when I was in high school again. Pills weren't really my favorite thing because I didn't know that much about them. But back then, you could get doctors that would prescribe Quaaludes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I had a friend who worked at a pharmacy, one of my high school buddies, and he was getting pills. So that's when I started, but they weren't my favorite thing. And then once I quit drinking about 30 years ago, I still wasn't doing any pills until I think I had some kind of surgery or some dental work done, and then started them, and I said, yeah, this is nice.
Yeah.
This is real nice. But then with those pills, they just stopped working after a while. You had to take too many. You're constipated. You're sweating all the time.
And the withdrawal is terrible.
Withdrawals, and that's what I hated.
Right.
Because the pills run out. They don't last forever.
And that's what, and I hear it all the time. And I've had some people I talk to who literally take like dozens, and there's one person who told me to take about 100 a day. And how you do that without dying? I mean, you have to build up to that. Obviously, the person was very unhealthy. Obviously, liver, affected the liver, everything, and it just is, and I mean that just with opiates, again, there's a pill form of this, like a street version of like heroin or fentanyl now, the new one, but it's in a pill form, but it's very addictive. Obviously, we know about that, we hear about that a lot, but coming off of them is just hell. Yeah. It's much easier to go off of alcohol than opiates.
Right.
Probably the most difficult of all is cigarettes is nicotine. So nicotine is very difficult to stop, but we're right up there with nicotine as opiates. And basically because of the withdrawal,
Right.
And same with nicotine withdrawal too, because someone has to have another one because the anxiety starts to come up, and then the cigarette's going to calm the anxiety down temporarily. But there's nothing really like opiates as far as addiction and getting off of them is very, very difficult. Did you ever have to go to rehab for that, or?
No, but the Suboxone is what really helped.
Oh, yeah. And the Vivitrol is amazing stuff, too.
Right, but the hard part is you have to go 2 weeks without anything in your urine. That's the hard part. And then you slowly start the Suboxone, increase it.
Oh, you mean you have to go without it before you even start it?
They check your urine, and they have to make sure you're not on any opiates.
Oh, wow.
So if I remember right, it's good for alcoholics and people and for nicotine. I think it's kind of the same craving.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. That's the difficult part of that waiting part. I think nowadays, I mean, I don't prescribe Suboxone, so I'm not an addictionologist who does. I don't prescribe Vivitrol or Suboxone. That's just beyond it's not what I trained for. It's not my expertise. But it's. But I think nowadays, a lot of doctors don't have to do the waiting period. What they'll do is they'll check urine after you're on Suboxone nowadays. I'm pretty sure from what I'm hearing, because when you have someone addicted to opiates, going that long is torture.
Yeah, they can't wait that long.
Right, and if they're concerned about, well, we don't want to put you on Suboxone if you're going to be doing street opiates, that I think is kind of passe now.
Well, that's good news.
Because they realize, because you can always put someone on Suboxone and then a couple weeks later check the urine then, because they can distinguish with the urine whether it's Suboxone or an opiate, a regular opiate. And the Suboxone's a partial opiate, so does it have addictive potential? It does, but it's a lot less than. So it's kind of a more modern form of like methadone.
Right.
So there's a lot of methadone clinics out there, and methadone is better than nothing for sure. It's a good answer for some people, but Suboxone is a lot cleaner. From what I've read about it, it's a lot cleaner, a lot more effective. And some people stay on Suboxone for a long time. And some people, when they try to wean off Suboxone, they relapse. And so there's certain people that I've heard of that say that I tried and I can get, or you start at a higher dose and you kind of get it down to maybe 2 milligram or so. But some people just say every time I try to stop it, I know I'm gonna relapse, so I go back on it. And from my viewpoint, I think with addiction specialists, hey, stay on Suboxone. It's much better that than going back to and especially nowadays, the street drugs are very dangerous. A lot of them are laced with fentanyl, and that's not only the street opiates, which are, but also street cocaine, street Xanax, street Klonopin, and that. So what they're doing is they're spiking a lot of these street drugs with fentanyl. And there's a psychiatrist I know whose son went to a party, took one pill that someone gave him, and he died.
Wow.
And so it's very, very dangerous out there right now. And that's why I think people feel desperate. Maybe when you were going on the street for the opiate, they didn't have the fentanyl around back then.
No.
But nowadays, I think people get desperate. They go on the street, and then it's high risk because a lot of teenagers dying, a lot of people. It doesn't take a lot of fentanyl to die.
Right.
You stop breathing, and and unless you're right there, the ambulance is right there to give you something to get out of it. You're gone, and so it's really critical that people never get street drugs. Only get drugs from a pharmacy. That's the only safe place really to get a controlled substance. So warning,
right?
Warning out there, just don't do it. And I understand that people, when they get desperate, they do desperate things. So
that's for sure.
Well, good. So now things have, so you've been sober now for how long now from things?
30 years on the alcohol and probably 10 years.
Wow.
On the drugs.
You're not getting cravings? You're not?
No, I've even had other surgeries since then and was very scared to take some of the pain pills, but I don't like any kind of pain, so I took them and I was fine afterwards.
Okay.
But I can't say enough about the Vivitrol shots. I wish they had enough of that for all the homeless people and whoever else needs it. Then they won't be out looking for the pills laced with fentanyl.
Right. And they won't be dying on the streets like we're doing
now.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and it's a tough. It's modern times. It's been tough. Times are tough, and and there's such a increased level of depression and anxiety that I've seen, and mood disorders since the pandemic. Everything's gotten worse since then, and younger and younger ages. It's really, really common, and so. But I really appreciate you coming in and telling your story. It's very, it's. I love your story. I love talking to you. You've been a dear patient for several years, and I love that the example you're setting and helping people talking about this. It's a difficult subject to talk about.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
yeah.
Anything else you'd like to say?
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
Unless you have some more questions, but.
Thanks you again, Keith, for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I hope this helps some people.
Me too. Thanks. So in the case of Keith, so he's on a combination of the three things: Prestique, which is again a serotonin, norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor. So basically, that's fixing the serotonin and the norepinephrine leak, and so it's forcing those chemicals to go forward. And in his case, I say 4 out of 4. He's got an imbalance of all 4 sites. He's on Seroquel, which is we call dopamine antagonist. So in the case of Seroquel, it's basically blocking dopamine. So it's slowing down because the dopamine is going too fast with him, so it slows it down so he can get to sleep. Gabapentin works on GABA, and it gets GABA moving normally. So in his case, with this combination, we're getting all 4 chemicals in a really nice balance. He's really stable on these medications. And, the gabapentin, he varies. He takes more when he's more anxious. He takes less when he's less anxious. And so that the gabapentin is kind of variable, but he's pretty fixed on the Pristiq and Seroquel dose. They've been doing really well. So with this combination of the 3, he's doing really well. I hope you enjoyed the show today. If you have issues with mental health, or if you know someone who needs help, I'm available. If you want to contact my office, my website is drpaulcoronamd.com. That's DR for doctor. And you can also learn more about me on my website. My phone number, if you want to contact my office directly, is 949-481-0118. If you want to learn more about my methods and what I do, my latest book, I recommend The Corona Protocol, a scientifically proven medical solution to stop addiction, bullying, homelessness, school shootings, and suicide, 30 years in the making. In this book, I tell 30 original short stories about people. And I also have my first 3 books, Healing the Mind and Body, the trilogy, available online. I look forward to you joining me again on the next episode of the Dr. Paul Show.